Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful sunny Monday afternoon. I posted a video Saturday kicking off this bead roller project. It's a large frame bead roller for the smaller 22mm dies. Yesterday, I did not post a video because I spent the entire day boring the blocks, or the afternoon, 3 or 4 hours. I had already bored one in the other video. I tried to streamline the boring process by drilling more, and I was using a relatively cheap set of drills that go up to 1 inch. Yeah, they stop at 1 inch. And I was using the 1 inch drill. It stepped down to go in a 1/2 inch chuck, and the mill won't slow down for anything. It would shear off the entire drill bit if it could, but it did catch almost all the way through the block and sheared off the step part of the drill. But while it was shearing it off, it tightened everything up. The shaft in the middle that holds your tools was super tight, and the chuck itself was tight. I actually had to use a pair of these to get the rest of the drill bit out, and then had quite a time getting it out of the machine, so that slowed me down. Excuse me. Long story short, I did get the front ones done and the rear done. And because I love torches so much, the first one I did on Saturday that I showed you in the video was slightly off center. While the mess was out and I was already suffering, why not make another one? Otherwise, I'm not going to be happy with it. So I made another one. And then I finished it. So I think I can show you the back. Well, killing myself, the back one. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably make 2 of these, bore it out, and then cut it in half and do whatever I had to do. But hopefully I don't have to do that right off the bat anytime soon. And I made the rear one 6 inches. I wish I'd made it 8 because my flat spot across the back is 8 inches, and it would have been easier. Now I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to bend a piece. When I go around the outside, I'm going to start with this rear piece. Originally I was just going to do this much, and now I'm going to put it in my little break and bend it this way and stop here, and then this one will go that way, and vice versa. The strapping material for the outside, my buddy had given me enough to do the outside, and he'd cut it not on the plasma table, but with the saws, the M18 circular saw, and those two are okay. And then Saturday we realized he forgot to give me the ones for the inside, so he cut those, and he cut them with a plasma cutter, and there I could make them usable. But on the way back, this was yesterday morning, I got up. I was at his house about 7:15. And on my way back, I decided I was going to check out first the local hardware store not too far from his house. I pull in the parking lot. There's 6 or 7 employees all wearing green shirts standing inside the window. It's 1 minute before they open. I'm the only one in the parking lot. And they're standing there looking at me. I'm like, you know what? I'll go somewhere else, because they wouldn't open the door. If they let me in, I'm going to be shopping for a few minutes. It's not like they have to do extra work, and they have to unlock the door in less than 60 seconds anyway, but they wouldn't even acknowledge me, and off I went. So I went to Home Depot, a couple towns away. I was going home that direction anyway, because I had decided that a couple things come into play. One, I didn't want to spend the time grinding whole strips of that. I don't mind if I cut off a small chunk and straighten it out to make it dimensionally correct, but I'll find a use for that, and I think I already have. So I decided to grossly overpay for some actual 2-inch flat bar at Home Depot. Not the place you're going to save money buying steel, I'll tell you that much. But on my way down there, I decided, because while I was at my buddy's shop, he has one that he made like this, and I could slightly flex it. I know I'm a flex idiot when it comes to it. This whole thing is because I don't want it to flex. So I decided that on the inner pieces, I'm going to put 1/4 inch. So that should make it rugged. I'm going to stick with the 3/16 on the outside, but I bought actual 2-inch flat bar, so it's dimensionally correct because I need to be spacing this accurately. And then I've also decided to run another rib halfway in the middle. You know, buried deep inside the rig, and that way I don't have to reinforce the outside if it still flexes. I'm going to put, so we're going to have 3 straight pieces on each side. I'm not worried about it flexing this way in the C. I just don't want it to go side to side like the others have. I was back at the speed shop on Friday where they had a Mittler Brothers bead roller, and I could flex that more than I can my Woodward Fab at this point. So it's probably not a big deal, but again, if you're going to do something, I'm only going to do this once, I hope. You got to do it. So this morning I decided to put the front blocks in the mill and give them a haircut, and I cut them right down to the thrust surface, so there's no excuse why they're not going to ever get that close together on the front, but I don't want to have it all attached and realize I should have cut that off, because you want them to be pretty close to the opening in the middle, and I don't want them to ever have any interference there. It only took a second to give them a haircut, so I did that. And then I started working on the shafts. I'd love to do the glory stuff and start putting this together, because that is, maybe the fun part. But the shafts, he bought, I assume it's hot rolled maybe. I mean, it's a nice 1-inch shaft. It's relatively straight, but it has mill scale on it. That has to come off. I also realized my small lathe, the hole that goes out through the center of the chuck is too small. I wish it had a bigger hole. Every lathe should at least have a 1-inch opening, but that one's probably 3/4. Way too small, but fortunately the jet lathe behind me has a pretty big opening. I can put an axle shaft out through it from a car, but I had to move the bandsaw and a bunch of other stuff so I could stick this in there, and I've got one done. My method to get rid of the mill scale, believe it or not, if you rubbed on this, you'd never know it, but I have a flap disc in my M18 grinder. With the lathe running, I just go back and forth. It's not sharp like a new flap disc, so you actually have to push to get the mill scale off. But it doesn't hurt a thing, and then I take my M18 sander, and I sand the entire length of it, and it comes out really nice. So that was my answer for that. And then I went ahead and cut an 1.5-inch section of the front to 22 millimeter and drilled it. I've drilled it, I haven't tapped it yet, for an M10 1.5 bolt that can hold it on. I'm also going to put it in the mill. I have to cut a flat area for the set screw on the bead roller die to lock into. Right now it would lock on with a bolt, but you still have to keep it from spinning, so that'll be next after I finish. So this shaft is done. I started working on the second shaft, and back to the first shaft. I've determined this is my 1-inch shaft collar. It fits perfect. My oil-light bushings need to be honed a little bit. They'll almost go, but again, this isn't a crankshaft. You gotta want a little bit of clearance. They call them oil-light bushings because it's oil impregnated into the bronze. So they technically don't need lubrication. I thought about putting a lube hole that you'd squirt oil in and it would leak out, but reality, these bushings are a couple bucks a piece. If I ever wore it out, if I ever lived that long, I'll be 150 years old and I realize my bead rollers wore out, I'll just change the bushings. So most people do not give them lube. The cheaper bushings in the wood, well, I don't know if they're cheaper, but the bushings in the Woodward Fab are definitely not as thick. And they have a grease fitting that I can only access 1 out of 4 anyway, so it would require some disassembly. I'm okay with just changing these down the road if needed, or adding a lube hole if it becomes a wear item. I'm gonna make it like the lathe. I could even buy the little cap, so you put your little oil can, you squirt in the hole, you close the cap, and it just dribbles out over time. So I'm going to give these the slightest hone, not much. And the way I'm going to assemble it, I don't need to shove the shaft all the way through the bushing. So I only concentrated on making the shaft super smooth, about 6 inches from each end. I'm going to assemble it, shove everything in, and then weld the blocks in place minimally. One, I don't want to get a lot of heat in them, and two, if I ever have to take them out, I don't want it to be too much of a project, so I'll tack weld the back one, maybe 4 1-inch beads that I could cut with a whiz wheel. Same with the front. The front upper is loose anyway, so thinking ahead in the unlikely event that you'd ever have to do any maintenance on it. I just chucked one of the gears in the lathe, and I'm going to bore that out to 1 inch as well, so I'll be done with one shaft, and I'll bore both gears, and then I'll go back probably later tonight or tomorrow morning and do the second shaft. And then my small projects, as far as the bead roller body itself, will be complete, and I can hopefully get it tacked together and then spend some time welding on it. So that's that for today. You're up to speed, and I'll catch you in a couple days.